Hello, welcome to this Bible for Life ministry. I'm Nick Crawley, and in this short video I'm introducing the book of 1 Samuel. Now, we all love heroes, and the entertainment industry is really built on the idea of heroes. And so I suppose it's not surprising that there is a book in the Bible which is about heroes. And 1 Samuel is exactly on this point. There are 3 main heroes and 3 minor heroes. The main ones are Samuel, the prophet, and King Saul and King David. And the minor ones are Samuel's mother, Hannah, and then Eli the priest, and Jonathan, who is David's friend. 1 Samuel is a collection of the most wonderful stories. They're stories which have been told again and again and again, and if you read them and hear them read aloud, they have this lovely lyrical sense to them. They have a feeling that here's a story that has been told many, many, many times throughout history. The stories of the young boy Samuel hearing God in the middle of the night. And even as a very young child, just discerning and hearing God speak. There's the story, one of the most loved, of David and Goliath. And then there are other sort of slightly less well-known stories. The story of David coming at night and cutting the corner off Saul's cloak when Saul was trying to had a party of men out to kill David. And there are many others which are exciting and which form a background not only to King David and to his rise to power, but also they colour the whole of the Old Testament. So if we ask the question, what is going on in 1 Samuel, there are some extraordinary answers, and they're very important answers. The first thing is that there is a transition. There is a transition from the tribes of Israel living in a sort of coalition with a theocracy where God comes to men and women and anoints them by his Spirit, and they have this prophetic leadership. They're called judges. They tend to sort of steer the whole collection of tribes, the nation, forward. There's a transition from that into monarchy, where there's one king ruling the nation. That's the first transition, and you'll appreciate it's an enormously significant change that is going on. And the second thing is that there's a transition from a king who's a tyrant to a king who loves God. And in the thinking of the time, the king represented God to his people. So it was hugely important that what sort of king you had. And the other development which goes on, which is there in 1 Samuel, but it actually reaches fulfillment in 2 Samuel, is that originally, with the different tribes of Israel, there was no centre of worship. They worshipped where they were. But David has this effect on the nation, and one of the key things he does is to establish a centre of worship in his capital, which is Jerusalem. And so you see these hugely important developments going on, and at this crucial time in the history of God's people, where God is laying all the way through the Old Testament a foundation for the great work that he's going to do through Jesus. You see these transitions take place, and at this crucial time, God brings these heroes onto the scene. And you see you see all these developments being played out. So it's a very different type of book. It needs to be approached in its own unique way. It needs to be read. These are stories. They're told as stories, and they need to be read as stories. And they're unified. They hang on their own. But the fundamental and profound thing that's going on throughout the whole book is the preparation of King David. Now, David was the great king of Israel. He was the forerunner of Jesus himself. And this book, 1 Samuel, tells about how God prepares a man for leadership. Now, of course, that applies to anyone that God is preparing for leadership, man or woman, or even a young person as well. And so there are huge points here to learn about the process and what God does in bringing, in forming and creating godly character so that a person can be used by him. And that is the value of this book. And there's a great deal to learn here. I think you'll enjoy it very much.